We're at the Point of Woods Golf and Country Club on the 9th tee of the course that hosts the Western Amateur Tournament. And with me is Tim Cronin, who is a writer for the Daily Southtown in the Chicago area, but more importantly for our purposes here, he is the historian of the Western Amateur. Tim, you have a lot of numbers in your head. How did you first get started being involved in the Western Amateur and its history?
It all began when I was assigned to write the Western Golf Association Centennial Book. Of course, the WJ puts on the Western Am. And that led to the fact that they didn't have complete records of the Western Amateur. They knew their champions and they knew their runners-up and they knew where they played, but there are other things they didn't know. And I thought, if we're going to have a complete history, it might be a good idea to get the numbers too. And that work's been going on now for several years.
Well, you have a lot of numbers, and they go back we're actually in the 3rd century now. So you're going back to what, 1899?
1899, when it started at what was then called the Glenview Golf and Polo Club. Luckily, the polo ponies did not come into play that year. And that is, in fact, not too many blocks from where the WGA headquarters is now. But it's been at the Point permanently since 1971, after they played it here in 1963 and 1965. And it has a great tradition of fine winners here at the Point. It's starting in '63 when a guy named Tom Weiskopf came along and won it, and he did pretty well as a professional as well.
Well, one of the things that you've pointed out is that a number of the players who've made the Sweet 16 here at the Point have gone on to win majors. Can you talk a little bit about some of those famous names?
Well, I think that stems both from the course itself. This is a great golf course, and the fact that the championship itself was played in arduous circumstances. 72 holes of stroke play over 3 days, with 36 on the 3rd day, and then the cut to the Sweet 16, and that's 4 matches over 2 more days. So potentially 144 or more holes over 5 days. So you've got to be tough, you've got to be strong and resilient to be able to do that. That brings out the best. And as of going into this year, since they came to the Point of Woods, 23 players have won major championships, the Big Four, after having been in the Sweet 16. And that doesn't also count the Western Open or the U.S. Amateur, where a number of other players have won it as well. Now, you think of Tiger Woods as being the guy who's done a lot after he won here in 1994, and that's true. But there are a whole bunch of other guys who did not win the Western Am, but made that Sweet 16, who went on to win a major, including guys like Steve Jones, Fred Couples. Curtis Strange, of course, won 2 U.S. Opens. He not only played in the Sweet 16 here, but won here. It's a great proving ground for talent. And if you get to the Sweet 16, you're going to go somewhere in golf most of the time.
So one of the cuts that people really try hard to make is the Sweet 16 here. What is it about this course that makes it bring out the best in some of these great players?
Well, I think it's a fascinating match play course. Here we are standing on the 9th tee. We're not even all the way back, but what is behind us is a very difficult green. It is preceded by the 8th hole, which is the shortest par 4 that you can find around here, a little over 300 yards. And in these days, when guys can bomb it, that means you can go for the pin when they move the tees up for match play. What happens here is you have great swings back and forth in matches. You can go for it on the second shot on number 2, a great par 5 with a ravine fronting the green, if you hit a good tee shot. If not, you're going to lose the hole in match play because the other guy's going to be about 50 yards in front of you, and he's going to get up there and make a 4. You'll have to struggle to make your 5. You have that all around the course. You have the Robert Trent Jones architectural style of his late 50s, early 60s style of the long runway-style tees on the 12th and 13th hole. The tees are 100 yards long. That's a wedge for me from the back to the front, and I hope I can get there. But these guys are bombing it and then hitting their second shots either from far up if the tee is up or way back, which even brings the long iron into play for some guys still. It's a marvelous test that way. And of course, in match play, you have to think. And you're playing not just the course, but your competitor straight out. And it's thrust and parry. And there's a great place here to do that because there's so much variety on the golf course.
In fact, one of the things I really like about the course is there's trees. How much do the trees come into play during match play?
Well, when I've played here in a casual round, quite a bit. You can, if you're offline here, the fairways are rather narrow and the tree lines encroach pretty closely, and in fact more so probably than they originally designed, because trees do have a tendency to grow. And I think of the 7th hole, which is a dog leg to the left, swinging with an uphill second shot. Very similar, in fact, to 16. They kind of parallel each other. If you're on the left side of the fairway, now you have to really play a wide hook to get to the pin position, which is always very difficult in match play. And if you're on the right side of the fairway, you've got a clear shot. That's the difference.
That's a huge difference. So that's why match play really makes this tournament so different from so many of the others, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the few match play tournaments, in fact, that collegiate players, which now dominate the Western Amateur along with the rest of amateur golf, play. The Western Am and the US Am are probably the two big match play tournaments. The Porter Cup, the Sonny Hanna Invitational, other tournaments of that nature, which are very high in what you call the amateur tour, the NCAA championship itself, all of these are stroke play. But here we are at match play, which is how you and I would play if we went out to play a match, and the oldest form of golf there is. And it's great that it's still around. The lovely part of it is that it jumbles the field. Once that 16 players is set, and they have the draw, and of course the medalists will play the least the well-scored player in the top 16, often getting in by a playoff, though that didn't happen here in 2007. Then anything can happen, because now you're even again. Even if you've played 72 holes of golf, it's back to square one, and the best man will win over 18 holes. Some people say, well, maybe it should be 36 holes. That would take much longer to play. An 18-hole match, you can get it done in a day, in a morning or in an afternoon, so you can play 4 rounds in 2 days, which is key.
One of the other things about the college kids, mostly college kids, who come and play this tournament, they're from all over the world. We've got players from Australia, New Zealand, China, Venezuela, Colombia. I'm missing some.
Not many.
But that really makes it an international tournament too, doesn't it?
Well, it really does. That started about 15, 16 years ago. There was a tournament that was played not too far from here called the Midwest Amateur, and some players decided to piggyback. But what you also have is the invasion, if you will, or the acceptance of foreign international players in collegiate golf. And now, for instance, Camilo Villegas played in this a few years ago. His brother was here this year, his little brother, finally making the Sweet 16 after, I think, playing in this 5 or 6 times. And you see the Australians, you see New Zealand, Spain, Canada's been here for a long time. But what I love about South Africa, what I love about it is that this is the melting pot, and this is literally the PGA Tour 5 or 6 years from now. All these names that are unfamiliar to us now, whatever year you may be watching this, they will be familiar to you down the line, because they will be the guys winning the major championships. Most of them will be on tour. A couple of them will be working in pro shops, but most of them will be out there or very close to being out there and succeeding.
So, adding to the list of people like Tom Weiskopf, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Justin Leonard, Chris DeMarco, Ben Curtis. The list is endless of players we now see on the tour who originally played here at the Western Am.
And that's why I like to come here every year, just to see who's next. When Phil Mickelson played Justin Leonard in the championship match in 1991, you knew both of those guys were going to be good. And Mickelson won it, but Leonard comes along and wins it the next 2 years. And who wins it after that in 1994? Some guy named Tiger Woods, who then gets knocked out in 95 and 96. Thus the match play. You think he's the best player, amateur player in the world at that point. That's true. But you can't always make it through match play. Wasn't even the medalist those years.
Well, I think Hal Sutton and Justin Leonard are some of the really rare ones who won it more than once. It's pretty hard to do, isn't it?
Well, it absolutely is. In fact, Sutton holds the modern-day record for matches won consecutively, because he won those 2 championships back-to-back and then came back to try and win 3 in a row, which hasn't been done since the old days when Chick Evans won 4 in a row and 8 in all. And he won his first match, making the Sweet 16, and then lost on Saturday afternoon. But he won 9 in a row, which is pretty good. I can't make 9 pars in a row, and here's a guy winning 9 matches in a row against the kind of quality players that he saw again on the PGA Tour for 20 years. It was great stuff.
Well, this is great stuff. And Tim, thank you very much for talking with us. And now let's go watch those future players of the PGA Tour. Thanks, Tim.
Can't wait to see him. Thanks.